It's been one of the craziest endings to a football season we will ever see in English football. A man stood behind a tree filming on his iPhone has led to Southampton Football Club missing out on a possible £200 million in revenue. Today we're going to be looking at the whole story, and most importantly we're going to be having a look at how it could impact Wrexham and what part we could have to play in this legal case, because there is a way in which Wrexham could have a big say in what happens eventually. So before we get going in today's video, if you are looking for the best Wrexham AFC content, it's coming your way on the channel. I say it every video, this is your hub for Wrexham content. We're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. You've killed the support over the past couple of videos. I cannot thank you enough for that. So let's go for 350 likes on today's video, and without further ado, let's get having a look at the backstory of the whole situation before we get talking on Wrexham's side of things. So get your popcorn ready, kick your feet up, because this story is absolutely incredible and it's just taken everyone by surprise. You're going to have to bear with me because I've got a lot of it written down here. William Salt, an intern at Southampton, was spotted filming Middlesbrough's training session in the lead up to the playoff semi-final. Mr. Salt was stood behind a tree 48 hours before the game, which goes against two key EFL rules, EFL Regulation 127 and EFL Regulation 3.4. Now the thing is with Salt is he was caught on the first day of filming for Middlesbrough. There was a plan in place for Southampton to send him back out. They'd booked him 2 nights in Middlesbrough to go back for a second day filming, but he was caught by Middlesbrough staff. When caught, William Salt ran to the golf clubhouse across the way from the training ground, where he changed into a different pair of clothes in a locker room before leaving the premises. The important thing to note in this whole situation is, and the most important thing for clubs looking at any evidence of spying from Southampton over the course of the season, is that the golf course that Mr. Salt ran to was owned by Middlesbrough chairman Steve Gibson, who found out that he had paid for a coffee on his personal bank card inside the golf club, leading to almost pretty much every championship club checking CCTV, checking bank transfer transactions, card transactions in local areas and in local shops to see whether Mr. Salt had been around the country and seeing whether he was playing a part in spying on their club in the lead up to the game. Now, in a hearing following on from this, it was stated that Southampton were caught spying on Oxford United in December, Ipswich Town in April, and of course Middlesbrough most notably a couple of weeks ago up in the northeast. All games, funnily enough, that they failed to win. Now I think this is absolutely incredible. When they did play Ipswich Town, obviously Ipswich being down in Suffolk, they've travelled across, they've stayed overnight and they've trained in the local facilities of local side to Southampton, Eastleigh FC, who we know all too well for our games over the years in the National League. Now when Ipswich Town were training there, Mr. Salt had got into the premises at Eastleigh in an Eastleigh training kit to blend in and be disguised whilst he was taking notes and probably filming the opposition when they were training in the lead up for the match, which is absolutely incredible and just ridiculous, because the lengths that Southampton were going to were quite remarkable considering all of these games they failed to win. If they're looking at Oxford United, they were planning to spy on them on Christmas Eve, but manager Gary Rowett had been sacked, so Tonda Eckert, the Southampton manager, said, scrap this, we're not going to send him out because they don't really know how they're going to set up, we don't know how they're going to train, and it doesn't give us much time to prepare, which I think the whole situation is just remarkable. Now obviously you're thinking the punishment for this, of course we've seen Leeds United back in 2019 were caught spying on Derby County. They were handed a £200,000 fine, but as we know since then, there were tough and firm rules be put in place by the EFL if this was to happen again. And the punishment, Southampton have been expelled from the playoff final, so despite winning their playoff semi-final against Middlesbrough 2-1 at home, they've been kicked out of a massive, one of the most valuable games of football there is in world football. They've been kicked out and they've been handed a 4-point deduction which will come in place at the start of next season. To put the cherry on top, manager Tonda Eckert, who was at the forefront of all of this scandal, is set to leave the club. So it has gone from being one of the biggest highs at Southampton just last week to losing their manager, missing out on £200+ million and missing out on a place in the playoff final. It is just absolutely crazy, and this is why, as football fans, if you're a Southampton fan, you would be absolutely gutted. I'm sure a lot of them feel physically sick, but as general football fans, it's why we love the sport of football, not because of the cheating, but for the whole situation. You never know what is going to happen next, and none of us could have expected this. Now you're probably thinking, why do you love it? Because it's possibly affected Wrexham's chances of getting to the Premier League, and I think within the whole situation, the main thing that Wrexham are going to be pushing for the EFL and the legal action from this is some sort of compensation. Yes, of course, Southampton weren't found guilty on spying other clubs, and yes, the games that they were caught spying on, they did end up either drawing or losing, but I think it is pretty certain that, okay, yeah, they're going forward and they're saying that the games that they've spied on, they've drawn, lost, I think. So, of course, they're only going to put forward the games that they haven't won. I do think in the whole situation there's been multiple other Championship clubs which Southampton have been spying on. I don't want to make accusations, but if we're speaking on this logically, I think it will end up coming out in a couple of months' time when the EFL have sorted this whole situation out, because it is such a big topic. It is such a big decision for the EFL to make on what happens to Southampton. They've made a big decision in itself in kicking them out of the playoffs. They've shown some authority for once, and I'm absolutely glad they have done, because it's not right. It isn't right at all. And I think the abnormally good run that Southampton went on as well, of course, they came to the racecourse ground, pumped us 5-1 in our own backyard. And I think the really interesting thing to note in this situation is when they did face against us, they were playing players out of position for the first time across the season. They obviously knew something, how Wrexham were going to set up and how they were going to beat the system, which meant Phil Parkinson, on the day, the staff, the players, just didn't have a clue what to do. And I do think as well, this abnormally good run as well could have been fueled by cheating, getting an unfair advantage on the other teams they're playing against, and most importantly, an unfair advantage on the teams below them in the English Football League system, especially in the Championship, because they finished 9 points above us. But if there's enough evidence there to say Southampton gained an extra 9 points from spying on teams getting an unfair advantage, Wrexham are more than entitled to some sort of compensation package. And of course, I think the most important thing as well is we missed out on 6th place, that last playoff spot, by just 2 points. So we are going to need some sort of answer from the EFL as to what is going to happen in this situation, because it's just more than finishing outside the playoffs. We've missed out on the shot of getting £200+ million, which could have set the club up for years and years to come, could have got that place in the Premier League, competing with the big boys. But I think the other question is on the EFL. I think there has to be some sort of question towards the EFL as to whether they could have solved this problem quicker. Obviously, they found out that they were spying in the lead up to the playoffs before the Middlesbrough game, before the two played. Could they have done that quicker? And if they would have done, postpone the second leg until a decision would have been made and resolved. So yeah, I do think that was a bit of a stretch, but if we are looking on the Wrexham side of things, it's a compensation package that we are going to be pushing and pushing for, because if Southampton are to have been found out on spying on other teams, getting that unfair advantage, Wrexham should be looking at getting every last penny we can get from this situation. Because like I just said previously and like I just brushed on, we've unfairly missed out on the shot of banking £200+ million, a place in the Premier League. And if Southampton are found guilty on more charges against teams across the season, this could get a bit messy for Southampton. For other clubs, you're looking at Oxford United, they're going to want something because they went down, of course, in the end. They've been spied on. Yes, they won the game, but if they are found to have spied on other teams, for Wrexham, for example, for Millwall, who were knocked out of the playoffs, but Middlesbrough being reinstated into the playoffs despite losing the 2 legs, Millwall will want some sort of answer for that and some sort of justice for them. So I do think, it could get very messy, and the EFL have a very serious job to do. Yes, Wrexham should be getting in there and should be making a sort of a point towards, this isn't fair, this is not fair at all, and it's not fair, it's cheating. They've cheated their way through multiple games, and I think it is good riddance that they didn't pick up any wins in the games that they have spied on. But I think the bottom line is there are more clubs that they've spied on. They wouldn't just pick random games from December, then to April, then to May. Just a weird random run of games, and games that, Ipswich, yes, it was important, but Oxford United on Boxing Day, it wasn't really a big game for them, and it wasn't a season-decided game. So I think a lot of information will come out when they do digging into the deep information of this case. But yeah, I think overall it is disappointing that the fact that the games that they did spy on, they didn't pick up any results, so it doesn't really hinder Wrexham's final table position. It doesn't really hinder our chances of getting playoffs. But if there is enough evidence that has impacted our league position from Southampton spying on other teams, it could get interesting. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think Wrexham are entitled to some sort of compensation from Southampton spying on other teams? I think it's an incredible case to be looking at and to be keeping an eye on. And if you are watching at home and if you somehow haven't heard of this, please keep an up-to-date eye on what's happening with Southampton over the next few weeks, because like I said, it could get very, very interesting. So talking next on some players, Arthur Okonkwo is first up. Now Arthur has gained his first call-up for the Nigerian national team and is likely likely to make his debut in the coming weeks when they do play Zimbabwe in a friendly, which I think he'll be in the squad for, and then there's a very good chance that he does feature against some of the greatest players we've seen in world football and in football history. Robert Lewandowski as they face Poland, and Cristiano Ronaldo as they face Portugal. A huge well done to Arthur Okonkwo, because we've seen the work and we've seen the journey that he's been on, from that sort of shaky goalkeeper, his poor goal kicks, his errors here and there in the early League 2 days, to now becoming a really good Championship keeper, having some really incredible moments. Of course, you're looking at that Nottingham Forest game when he was the hero in the penalty shootout, and yet another player representing their country and flying the Wrexham flag across the world. So a big well done to Arthur Okonkwo, and I'm sure it'll be the first of many call-ups for the Super Eagles. And talking next now, I did see a comment on, I think it was the last video or the video before, saying that I should discuss the future of young striker Bailey Cadamarci. Now, of course, we saw Cadamarci come into the club late on in the January transfer window, and a lack of game time between the 1st of February and the end of the season has got Wrexham fans thinking, what does the future hold for the young Jamaican striker? And I do think when Wrexham went in and signed Cadamarci, they knew before that this was kind of a free hit. They were signing them from Sheffield Wednesday, who were looking for every last penny. I think it was around the £1 million mark. He wouldn't be included in the numbers of the squad that we do submit because he's classed as a homegrown player. So I think Phil Parkinson was looking at this thinking, yes, he's a young striker, he showed some promising signs, he's a similar build and a similar profile to the strikers that we do currently have. And again, I do wonder what Parky's stance will be going into the summer for Bailey Cadamarci, because I do think it is near enough guaranteed that we'll go out there, we'll look for one or two strikers to boost our chances even further. And when he signed, I don't think it was ever going to be a player and a signing that was going to get in this starting lineup week in, week out, was going to be a starter, was going to score all the goals. But again, it's a situation that I just can't see changing going into the Championship this season. If I was me and if I was in Phil Parkinson's shoes, I would be looking to get Cadamarci out on loan to hopefully maybe a Championship side or a top-end League One side, because we know he can score goals. He's a good player. He's got that build of, a target man at the top holding up the ball, but he's got a sharp eye for goal as well. So we want him to get consistent game time all throughout the season. Whether that's a Wrexham or not, we don't know at this moment in time, but I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section down below. Should we keep Cadamarci, or should we look to send him on loan to get some valuable game time and then come back to the club stronger than ever? So that is it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like as well. Make sure to subscribe. We're on the road to 29,000 subscribers. Like I said, you've smashed the support and I cannot thank you enough. I don't know if there'll be a video over the weekend, but going into next week, if there's any general club news, I'll keep you up to date. So make sure to turn the notification bell on so you're notified when those videos do come out. And until the next one, take care guys, up the Championship Reds.